Angel Clark Show on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. Visit Angel's website at radiofreedom.us.
Obey these rules instead of following your heart or your head. Why? Because we're the government, and you're not.
The Angel Clark Show on Radio Freedom.us.
So lesson number 1 is pay your taxes and be thankful that we let you keep any of your money. You see, debt is good for the economy. No cash, no problem. Just say charge it. Lesson number 2 is spend all the money you can. Don't be greedy and save it for yourself.
Till the break of
As we all know, our two-party system is a cornerstone of the Constitution. Allowing different ideas on the ballot would just confuse everyone. Imagine where that confusion might lead. This is especially popular among broadcast media who see their ratings go up during times of world crisis.
This is the Angel Clark Show.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on radiofreedom.us. I have on the line with me Dan Marks, and Dan is president of Article 5, which is article5.org. Article-v.org is the easiest way to go to the site. It is a legal expression of the Inter-Occupy Article 5 work group. Article5.org is not a left-wing or right-wing organization. They consider themselves as radically moderate. Their mission is to educate Americans on the reasons to bring about an Article 5 convention and to apply their energy to Congress to call for a convention to propose amendments to the United States Constitution as described in Article 5 of the Constitution. So Dan is actually joining us for the second time. He's been on the show before. Dan, I want to thank you for joining us again. And before we get into the reason why you're joining us specifically this evening, can I get you to explain a little bit about what it is that you do at Article 5?
Sure. Aloha, Angel. Thank you again for having me on. It's
My
a pleasure
pleasure.
to be here and talk to everybody. What we do is Article 5. What I do is basically we have a group of people that is comprised of a number of folks that are scattered throughout the country that have at one time, I believe, belonged to different Occupy groups. But, basically you don't have to be part of Occupy to be part of this group. We're just a bunch of people that decided to get together and put our energy towards getting a convention call from Congress. And that way we can all have the opportunity to present the amendments and debate them and deliberate them. And hopefully we all come together and decide what kind of a nation we're going to be for the next 100 or 200 years again.
Yeah. Now, you guys have been working on putting together a constitutional convention, right?
Yeah, it's not actually. There's a difference between a constitutional convention and an Article 5 convention. Article 5 in the Constitution describes the method of a convention, and it gives you two ways to amend the Constitution, either by Congress or by this convention. We've never had a convention in our history, and this is an amendment convention. A constitutional convention typically means that you're going to sit down and rewrite the thing from scratch. We don't have any legal process for that in America. What we do have is the ability to amend the Constitution that we do have. And that's basically what we're talking about, is a revival of the Constitution, make it a living, breathing document, once again, that's responsive to the needs of our time. And again, redefining in modern terms what we are. There's a lot of things like internet privacy, internet speech, medical rights, all kinds of modern issues that our forefathers never dreamed that we would have to discuss at this point in time. So basically, we just need an update of our Constitution and to reaffirm the rights that we have that Congress seems to brush under the rug, I guess. We see that a little too often these days, I think.
You know, we definitely do. There are a lot of people that I know who are, they consider themselves voluntarists or anarchists, and they say, you know, if the Constitution is how we managed to get to the point that we're at today, then it was obviously a flawed document, and there's something wrong with it. I'm not saying that I believe or do not believe that, but I know it's a valid argument that many people adhere to, and you do have to admit that right now we're in a tight spot. Of course, there's a lot that goes on that is not. That is just blatantly unconstitutional, and our government completely ignores it. How would you get them to adhere to this?
Well, that's a good question. How do you get our government to obey our Constitution? Well, I guess first of all, let me go back to your other point there, that our Constitution does have its flaws. Even George Washington admitted that this was basically the best that they could do, given the circumstances that they were under, and they were trying to form a union with states that supported slavery, which was pretty dramatic different than the states in the North. So with their vast differences, they were still able to pull it together and form the union. But he admits that the Constitution was basically the best they could do at the time. And they left the door open for future generations to amend it as needed. So basically, that's what we're talking about is the chance for everybody to get together again. Now, how would you get the government to abide by the Constitution? That is the $1 million question right there. We would all love to do it, and there's a number of ideas that are out there. Council of Governors that would basically be a check on the government, but our forefathers gave us Article 5 basically as the tool to erect encroachments against erect barriers against the encroachments of our federal government. So this is kind of the tool that they already gave us. It's just that we've never used it. And I think that our forefathers fully intended it for us to participate in our republic in this fashion.
Okay, now you have scheduled an Article 5 constitutional convention, right? You've got one scheduled. Article5.org does.
We have an event that we're planning. We haven't announced it yet, but we do have an event we're planning that is a physical event, and we are going to include online participation in that, and we'll have more information coming up about that shortly. But what I'm here about today is actually that there's another convention scheduled on July 4th this year by the Compact for America. You can look them up at compactforamerica.com. What that is it's a project that is being worked on in concert. I don't know exactly how much they're working together, but Alec and the Goldwater Institute are both eager to hold a constitutional convention for the sole purpose of passing the Balanced Budget Amendment, which at face value doesn't sound that bad at all. And our group doesn't support or oppose any particular amendments. We all want them to be presented and discussed. So we don't have any particular problem with that amendment being proposed. However, they're doing it in a unique fashion. They are trying to pre-ratify the amendment that they revised. And the way that they're doing that is they're going around from state to state. It takes 34 states to apply for a convention. Once 34 states apply for it, Congress is required to call it.
Hold on to that thought, Dan. We've got to step away for just a moment, and when we return, we'll find out exactly what it is that's going on. Go to the website article5.org, which is articlev.org. The Angel Clark Show will return, radiofreedom.us.
Class isn't over. It's just begun. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm. You're listening to The Angel Clark Show on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. Visit Angel's website at radiofreedom.us.
We are in the very midst of revolution. The most complete, unexpected, and remarkable of any in the history of the world.
How bad do things have to get before you do something? Do they have to take away all your property? Do they have to license every activity that you want to engage in?
Government is a growth industry, and it's drawing exactly the worst type of people. That's where all the sociopaths go. The quality of people that you're going to find in the government in the future is going to be much worse than it's been in the past. I think it's perfectly predictable.
It's just crazy, you know. Everyone's affected by it.
Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show on radiofreedom.us. I have on the line with me Dan Marks, who is president of article5.org, which you can find by going to articlev.org, V being the Roman numeral 5. Dan, I want to thank you for sticking around. You're just starting to get into an attempt to hijack an Article 5 constitutional convention. So if you want to just kind of pick right back up where you left off.
Yeah, there's a lot involved here. I'm going to go pretty fast, actually. But basically what they're doing is they're taking the entire amendment process through a convention, and they're working it backwards. They're going to get 38 states together, that's the number required to ratify the amendment, and apply for the convention. It only takes 34 states to apply for the convention. So they're actually going to say not only do we have enough states to apply for a convention, but we have enough states to ratify this amendment. That is interesting enough, and normally that wouldn't be any big problem, but they go on that the amendment will really not be up for any changes. There won't be any real deliberation of the amendment in the process. They also create the delegates for this event, and they select the governor of each state. And that's it. The process in some of these states already is set up for multiple delegates, and there's a reason for that. You increase your jury pool. You can be more confident that the group of people deliberating is going to be less corrupt. However, this way, they've set it up in advance. There's not going to be any real debate over this amendment. They've selected the delegates in advance. They're not giving the choice of the delegates to the people. They've selected it for them. They've set it up.
Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
Yeah, it's not really a convention at that point. It's just a rally, you know, and it's set up for July 4th this summer in Dallas, Texas, at the Federal District Courthouse in Dallas. And if you can imagine, all these governors, one after another, standing up and telling everybody that they are taking over our constitutional convention. This is the convention for the people to get together and decide, not the elite. You know, that's not the purpose of this convention. It's for the people. So we won't revolt. So we won't start a shooting war in our country. Our forefathers set up this process so the people can have direct input. But they've hijacked our method for their own purposes, selected the governors to be the delegates, and they're going to go there and basically lock out and exclude any opposition to this amendment. Now, the amendment itself is a wild revision of the Balanced Election Amendment. It says that in the event that Congress doesn't pass a balanced budget, And keep in mind, we haven't had a balanced budget for years, or any budget that was passed. That power is then put into the White House to cherry pick and slash the entire annual budget as he or she feels. So then it goes over to the Congress for a rubber stamp. Now you can imagine, in a two-party system, any party in Congress who has control of the White House has absolutely no incentive to negotiate in good faith on a budget when their president can cherry pick it the way he wants. So this is an amazing transformation where just by process, it'll hand over the checkbook of our country to the president. And that is not very democratic at all.
To say
I can't
the
even
least.
imagine. And what this kind of reminds me of, too, is we saw this last summer at the Republican National Convention, where they basically hijacked delegations from different states and told all the delegates from Maine, you can't be here anymore. You're kicked out of the convention. We're going to replace them with our own delegates. It's pretty much the exact same thing. They're taking our voice away, and they're going to do this. And there's not really going to be much opposition. This is, ironically enough, the people that have been fighting things like collective bargaining, this is a massive collective bargaining effort by these particular governors to do this. And what's even more amazing is that 2 months before this event is scheduled in July, all these governors are going to be meeting at the American Legislative Exchange Council Spring Summit on May 2nd and 3rd in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they'll have a lot of face-to-face conversations that won't be recorded, won't be written down, and we have no idea what they're talking about. So if they're actually successful getting to 38 states, these governors will have an amazing opportunity to talk about what they're going to do at this convention.
Now listen though. What can we do to help? What can we do to get involved here? Because we've only got about a minute left.
Okay. There's an interesting thing that's going to be coming up. Congress is going to have the choice. They are required to call the convention once enough states have applied for it. But they have the choice to agree and approve of any agreement between any of the states. What we need to have Congress understand that they cannot uphold the compact. We need the selection of our own delegates, and we need open debate where we can deliberate and change the language of that amendment if we see fit. And personally, I have some pretty big objections to that major change there. So it has to be clear. We don't just need an open convention, but we need control of that convention. We need it back in our hands as the people. And then we're going to have a result that's going to be much more desirable than what they're trying to do here.
All right. Well, Dan Marks, I want to thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for everything that you do. Please go to the website, article5.org, which is Article V, meaning the Roman numeral V.org. Keep up the good work. The Angel Clark Show will return. RadioFreedom.us.
Turning pigs into bacon. This is the Angel Clark Show.
Creative Commons.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.